I had everything she once mocked me for wanting. The penthouse windows stretched floor to ceiling, glass walls opening out over the lights of San Francisco Bay. The city glittered beneath me like it finally knew my name. My life was polished now, controlled, successful, untouchable. And yet 3 years ago I stood on a ballroom stage while she laughed. It was my firm's largest charity gala of the year. 200 people. Crystal chandeliers. Cameras flashing. The kind of night where appearances mattered more than truth. She lifted her champagne glass, smiled sweetly and said loud enough for half the room to hear. Poor Maya. 34 years old, and still married to her work. The room laughed politely. She turned toward me, eyes gleaming with something sharp and cruel. Some of us just know how to keep a man, she added. I smiled back. Not because it didn't hurt, but because standing beside me, his hand resting calmly on the small of my back, was Ethan Zhao, founder, tech visionary, the man whose company had just been valued at $800 million, and the man who had quietly destroyed her fiancé's law firm in the biggest acquisition deal of the year. When I called Ethan over and introduced him, she recognized him instantly. Her fingers tightened around her glass. The smile slipped. Her face drained of color. That was the moment she knew. But to understand why that mattered so much, I need to take you back to the beginning. Lena Hart had been my best friend since freshman year at Berkeley. We survived brutal all-nighters, caffeine-fueled breakdowns, and an architecture program designed to crush weak spirits. He was my person. My emergency contact. The one who sat with me through my mother's chemo appointments, holding my hand when I couldn't stop shaking. 20 years of friendship. Or so I believed. When I met Daniel Brooks 3 years ago at a legal conference, I thought my life had finally clicked into place. Daniel was everything my younger self thought she was supposed to want. Senior partner at a prestigious firm. Tailored suits. Smooth confidence. He knew the right wine, the right restaurants, the right people. My father would have approved. Lena was thrilled. Every time I mentioned Daniel, she leaned closer. Asked questions. Wanted details. What did he say? How did he touch my hand? Where did he take me? I told myself she was just happy for me. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. The way she laughed too hard at his jokes. How her hand rested on his arm a second longer than necessary. How she always insisted on sitting next to him at dinners. Once she showed up at my apartment in a new dress, asking if it looked okay, right before Daniel was supposed to come over. I told myself she was lonely. I told myself I was lucky to have a best friend who liked my fiancé. I was wrong. The night everything shattered began like any other. I was at the office late, nearly midnight, finalizing drawings for a mixed-use project that could make my career. My presentation notes were essential. I realized I'd left them at home. Daniel had a key. He offered to grab them and meet me. When I called to check in, his phone went straight to voicemail. So did Lena's. That was when the cold settled in my stomach. That quiet instinct you try to ignore because once you listen to it, there's no going back. I drove home. Daniel's car was parked outside. So was hers. I opened the door. They were on my couch. Her legs draped over his lap. His hand resting on her thigh. Their bodies leaned together in a way that didn't require explanation. They didn't hear me at first. I heard her say, "We just have to be careful until after the wedding. Once you're married, we'll figure it out. Maya will be so busy with work she won't notice." Daniel laughed. Actually laughed. "She already doesn't," he said. "Last Tuesday she worked until 10. I told her I had a client dinner. We had 3 hours." The folder slipped from my hands. The sound was deafening. They froze. Lena turned white. Daniel jumped up so fast he nearly knocked her over. They talked over each other. Excuses, explanations, lies tumbling out in panic. But I couldn't hear them. All I heard was something breaking inside my chest. "Get out," I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. Lena grabbed my arm. "Paya, please." I pulled away. "Both of you," I said again. "Get out." They left. I locked the door, slid down onto the floor and finally let myself fall apart. And that was the night the woman I used to be died. The morning after I found them, the sun rose like nothing had happened. That felt cruel. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Missed calls. Messages stacking on top of each other like debris after a storm. Daniel sent flowers. White lilies. A note asking for forgiveness as if betrayal could be wrapped in ribbon. Lena sent texts. One after another. 17 in total. Please let me explain. It wasn't planned. I love you. You're my sister. Don't do this. I blocked them both. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't even cry that morning. I put on clean clothes, tied my hair back and went to work. Because buildings made sense. People didn't. I called off the wedding with one sentence. There won't be a ceremony. No explanation. No discussion. The venue coordinator sounded sympathetic. My mother sounded confused. Friends sounded stunned. I felt empty. For weeks I lived on autopilot. I slept in 3-hour stretches. Ate whatever was nearby. Avoided mirrors because the woman staring back looked unfamiliar. Older somehow, sharper, quieter. Work became my refuge. I arrived before sunrise. Left long after dark. I volunteered for projects no one wanted. Took criticism without flinching. Poured every broken piece of myself into concrete, steel and glass. My senior partner, Grace Lynn, noticed. She waited until the conference room emptied one afternoon before closing the door behind her. "You're bleeding," she said calmly. I blinked. "I'm fine." She shook her head. "You're surviving. That's different." I told her the short version. No names. No drama. Just facts. She listened without interrupting. Then she said something that lodged itself deep in my bones. "The best revenge," she said, "is becoming so fulfilled that they disappear from your internal life." I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. So I chased it the only way I knew how. 6 months passed. I worked like someone possessed. I won a regional design award. I was promoted to junior partner at 34, one of the youngest in the firm's history. My name started circulating in rooms I'd never been invited into before. At night when the office was quiet I sometimes thought about Lena. Not with anger. With disbelief. 20 years. Gone. That loss hurt more than Daniel ever could. Therapy helped. Dr. Alvarez taught me something important. Betrayal doesn't just break trust. It fractures your sense of reality. It makes you doubt your instincts, your memories, yourself. You don't heal by closing your heart forever, she said gently. You heal by choosing who deserves access. I wasn't sure I believed her. But I tried. That's how I ended up in a small coffee shop 3 weeks before the charity gala. I was buried in blueprints when the man at the next table silenced his phone and apologized under his breath. It rang again 15 minutes later. This time he answered. I heard phrases like investor concerns and launch timelines. His voice was calm but tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying responsibility, not chaos. When he hung up he caught me looking. Sorry, he said. Tech emergencies don't respect caffeine breaks. I smiled faintly. Neither do architectural deadlines. He glanced at my screen, genuinely curious. Those yours? I nodded. I'm Ethan, he said, offering his hand. And I feel like I just interrupted something important. You didn't, I replied. I'm Maya. We talked. Not the forced kind. The easy kind. Minutes blurred into hours. He listened, really listened when I explained my work. Asked questions that showed he understood the answers. When he smiled it wasn't rehearsed. When he laughed it wasn't performative. As the sun dipped behind the buildings he hesitated. This might be forward, he said, but would you let me take you to dinner? Every alarm in my head went off. But so did something else. Hope. I'd like that, I said. Our first date lasted 4 hours. No flashy restaurant. No posturing. Just conversation. He told me about failing his first startup. About moving back home. About rebuilding from nothing. There was humility in his success. That's what drew me in. 2 months later I told him everything. The betrayal. The engagement. The best friend who wasn't. He didn't interrupt. Didn't offer platitudes. When I finished he took my hand and said, I'm glad they were foolish enough to lose you. I believed him. And for the first time since that night on my couch I didn't feel broken. I felt chosen. Unknowingly I was walking straight toward the moment that would undo everything Lena thought she'd won. The charity gala crept up faster than I expected. My firm was a major sponsor, which meant attendance wasn't optional. It was political. Smiles mattered. Conversations mattered. Who you arrived with mattered even more. As junior partner I was expected to bring a guest. I asked Ethan. He didn't hesitate. Of course. Then with a half-smile he added, "Do I need to wear a tux or is this a suit situation?" "It's black tie," I said. "Then I'll wear a tux," he replied easily, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I'm looking forward to standing next to you." I didn't tell him they would be there. I told myself it didn't matter. That I was past it. That I was stronger now. That was a lie, but not a dangerous one. Not anymore. The night of the gala I spent longer getting ready than I had in years. Not out of insecurity. Out of intention. I chose a deep navy gown, elegant, structured, unmistakably confident. My hair was swept into a clean updo. Makeup understated, sharp. When Ethan arrived he stopped in the doorway. For a moment he just stared. "Wow," he said quietly. "You're extraordinary." I smiled. "You clean up well yourself." He did. In his tux he looked like someone who belonged anywhere power gathered. Calm, composed, untouchable. The venue was breathtaking. A museum atrium transformed with soft lighting, white florals, crystal glassware. A string quartet played as champagne flowed. San Francisco's elite filled the room. And then I saw her. Lena stood near the entrance in a bold red gown, arm looped through Daniel's. She looked polished. Thinner. Sharper. Like someone who'd practiced smiling through disappointment. The moment her eyes met mine I saw it. Surprise. Then calculation. She whispered something to Daniel and started walking toward us. "Maya," she said brightly. "Oh my God. You look incredible." Her voice was syrupy. Artificial. I kept my expression neutral. "Lena." She looked at Ethan then back at me. "Aren't you going to introduce me?" "This is Ethan," I said simply. "My partner." Daniel stepped closer, extending his hand. "Daniel Brooks." Ethan shook it calmly. I watched Daniel's face carefully. Recognition flickered. They knew each other. Professionally. Lena's eyes darted between them. "So, how long have you two been together?" "A few months," I said. Her smile tightened. "How lovely. You know, Daniel and I are getting married in 2 months. Destination wedding. Italy." She raised her hand just enough for the ring to catch the light. The message was clear. I won. "Congratulations," I said evenly. She leaned closer. "I worried about you, you know. Being alone at our age can be difficult." Her eyes skimmed over me, assessing. Measuring. "But it looks like you're doing okay," she continued. "Bringing dates to events and all. That's healthy." "Dates." Ethan's hand slid to the small of my back. "Steady. Proactive." "Actually," he said calmly, "we're not dating casually." Lena blinked. "I'm in love with her," he continued. "I have been for weeks." The air shifted. My heart slammed against my ribs. Lena's expression cracked, just for a second. "Oh," she said lightly. "New love always feels intense." "It isn't intensity," Ethan replied. "It's certainty." He took my hand, fingers threading through mine. "We should find our table," he added politely. And just like that we walked away. Dinner passed in a blur. Features. Applause. Auction paddles lifting. I could feel Lena watching me from across the room like a bruise you can't stop touching. During the auction Ethan raised his paddle. "Trip to Tuscany," the host announced. Ethan won. "For our honeymoon," he said casually, then froze. Sorry. That was presumptuous." I looked at him. "Ask me properly later," I said. "But yes." He kissed me. Right there. In front of everyone. I heard gasps. Felt eyes burning into us. I didn't care. Later I excused myself to the restroom. Lena was waiting. Her confidence was gone. "You're dating him," she whispered. "Do you have any idea who he is?" "Yes," I said calmly. "I do." Her voice rose. "You were supposed to be alone." That was the moment I knew. She hadn't wanted Daniel. She'd wanted me to lose. And instead I had won something she could never steal. Lena closed the lounge door behind us with shaking hands. The room smelled faintly of perfume and panic. "Do you know what people are saying about him?" she demanded, her voice too loud, too sharp. "He's one of the most eligible men in Silicon Valley. His company just closed another funding round. Her voice cracked. "He's everything." I crossed my arms. "You don't get to interrogate my relationship." She laughed, but it sounded hollow. "This isn't fair." I tilted my head. What exactly isn't fair? She snapped. You weren't supposed to end up like this. You were supposed to be struggling, regretting everything, realizing what you lost. The truth slipped out before she could stop it. I felt something inside me settle, like a puzzle piece finally clicking into place. You didn't want Daniel, I said quietly. You wanted to win. Her eyes filled with tears. I wanted what you had. And when you took it? I asked. Did it make you happy? She pressed her fingers to her temples, breathing fast. Daniel's firm is falling apart. Clients are leaving. We postponed the wedding twice because of money. He's angry all the time. He drinks more. He says things he can't take back. That's not my problem, I said. I know, she whispered. I know it's not. But I thought if I could just get through the wedding, if I could lock him down, everything would stabilize. I stared at her. You built your future on someone else's ruins, I said. What did you expect? Her shoulders sagged. He said he missed you. The words landed flat. He said you were smarter than me, that you were more interesting, that he made a mistake. I felt no triumph, only clarity. He did make a mistake, I said, but not by choosing you. His mistake was believing people are interchangeable. She looked up at me, mascara-streaked eyes searching. And Ethan, she asked bitterly. What is he? Another upgrade? No, I said firmly. He's a partner. An equal. Someone who respects my work, my time, and my boundaries. She swallowed hard. Why can't we fix this? Why can't we just move on? Because moving on doesn't mean going backward. Because I don't trust you, I said. And without trust, friendship is just habit. Her face crumpled. 20 years ago I would have reached for her. Tonight I didn't. I opened the door and walked back into the gala. Ethan saw my face immediately. He stood without a word. Can we go? I asked quietly. He nodded. Of course. No questions. No hesitation. In the car, the city lights slid past in silence until I was ready. She wanted to know why I ended up with you, I said finally. And, he asked gently. I told her the truth, I said. That you see me as an equal. That you don't try to shrink me. He reached over and took my hand. I'm sorry you had to face them tonight. I'm not, I replied. And I meant it. For months I was afraid I'd see them and feel like I lost something valuable, I said. But standing there tonight watching her try to make me feel small. I squeezed his hand. I realized I escaped. He smiled softly. 2 bullets. Exactly. 3 months later we got married. No spectacle. No posturing. Just close friends, family, and the kind of quiet joy that doesn't need witnesses. Grace was there smiling like a proud parent. My therapist sent a card that read, "Told you staying open was worth it." Lena sent a gift. I donated it. Some doors don't need reopening. The last I heard, Lena and Daniel married quietly at a courthouse. They moved out of the city. Smaller life. Smaller ambitions. I wish them peace, not for their sake but for mine. Because bitterness is heavy. And I don't carry what no longer belongs to me. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the woman who stood frozen in her doorway watching her world collapse. I wish I could tell her this. That endings can be disguises. That betrayal can be a redirection. That the life waiting on the other side of heartbreak might be better than anything you planned. The real victory wasn't the penthouse. Or the successful husband. Or the career milestones. It was learning I could trust myself again. And that, no matter what someone tries to take from you, they can never steal what you rebuild stronger. People think revenge is loud. They imagine dramatic confrontations, public humiliation, carefully planned takedowns. But real revenge? It's quiet. It's the moment you realize the people who tried to break you no longer live rent-free in your head. After the wedding, life didn't magically become perfect. Ethan and I argued sometimes. About schedules. About priorities. About who forgot to replace the coffee beans. We were 2 ambitious people learning how to share space, time, and silence. But the difference was this. Every disagreement ended with respect. Every hard conversation ended with honesty. Every victory was shared. I never had to make myself smaller to be loved. That alone felt revolutionary. A year later I ran into Lena at an industry event. No dramatic music. No sharp words. Just a polite nod across the room. She looked tired. Not unhappy exactly, just worn down like someone who kept chasing a finish line that kept moving farther away. There was a sadness in her eyes. Not longing for me, but for the version of herself she might have been if she'd built instead of taken. I felt nothing. No anger. No satisfaction. Just distance. And that's how I knew I'd healed. Ethan and I eventually bought a house overlooking the bridge. Not because it proved anything, but because it felt like home. I made senior partner. We talked about kids. About slowing down someday. About the future as something to create together, not something to win. Some nights when the city was quiet, I thought about that younger version of myself. The woman standing frozen in her doorway. The woman who thought betrayal was the end of her story. I wish I could sit beside her and say this. You don't see it yet, but this moment will save you. It will strip away illusions. It will force you to choose yourself. And one day you'll be grateful the wrong people left, because they made room for the right life. Forgiveness didn't mean reconnection. It meant releasing control. It meant refusing to let bitterness define me. Dr. Alvarez once said something that stayed with me. Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about refusing to keep paying for it. So I stopped paying. The biggest lesson I learned wasn't about love. It was about identity. Some people see relationships as competitions. They want what you have, not because it's better but because it's yours. They don't know how to build happiness. They only know how to steal proximity to it. I learned to build. Brick by brick. Boundary by boundary. Choice by choice. Today my life looks full from the outside. But the real win isn't visible. It's knowing I trust my instincts again. That I don't ignore red flags for comfort. That I don't confuse history with loyalty. I learned that losing people who betray you isn't loss. It's alignment. If you're listening to this and you're standing in the ruins of something you thought would last forever, hear me clearly. This is not the end. This is an ending pretending to be one. One day you'll look back and realize the worst moment of your life redirected you toward something better than you could have planned. Not because they hurt you, but because you chose to rise. And that is something no one can ever take from you.